Hey folks, we are back live at livecoding.ca. My name's Nick Taylor, your host, and today I'm hanging out with James Perkins. James, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on, Nick. Really appreciate it. I'm excited to dig into some Clerk stuff and play around with some user identity and show you that it doesn't have to be as complex as it has been for the last decade or so. But yeah.
Cool. No, awesome. Yeah, thanks for joining me. So let's talk about Clerk. Let's talk about user identity, and I can definitely understand this pain because although I've done a lot of front end in more recent years, and I'm at Netlify now working with frameworks and like CLI stuff. In a previous lifetime, I did a lot of ASP.NET and C# and working with some SharePoint applications too. And I used to have to manage a single sign-on with SAML. SAML is like
Mm-hmm.
a beast. It's not fun. I can 100% guarantee you it's not fun. I'm super excited to hear about a bit more about Clerk and then see what we can do today with Clerk.
Yeah. Let's talk about Clerk. So Clerk essentially is a user identity platform similar to maybe Auth0 if you've ever worked in the space, or Magic Links, or
Okay.
Next.js is a good example in the current
Yeah.
space. Except from what we do is sort of just build it with components. So
Okay.
everything, you can set up authentication in under 5 minutes with
Okay.
Next.js, for example, by dropping in a few components and having a front end API, and we'll take care of sign in for you, user profiles, users being able to manage their accounts, sign up, social logins, all that fun stuff that you just don't want to deal with, which is what makes Clerk so powerful. So imagine being a front end engineer and having to spend, you build those login pages, they look beautiful, and then you're like, hey, my login pages are done. And then you have to like pass it off to a back end engineer to do all the back end stuff, and you got to hook it all up.
Yeah.
Like all of that's like removed with Clerk.
Okay.
So there's no reliability on having these back end providers do all this kind of stuff. We handle it all for you, and we make it really easy
Okay.
to do so.
Nice. Yeah, no, and I think that ties into a lot of the ways that folks are working today. Like I find, well, having done all parts of the stack as a front end developer, we're still front end developers, but we've become more, I don't want to say full stack necessarily,
Right.
but, stuff, lots of APIs out there, a lot of components, all that kind of stuff. And like relying on stuff like serverless or like edge computing, it's opened a lot of doors for stuff where it used to be like, okay, I have to install this whole server now and set it up
Right.
or whatever, and now you can use a service like Clerk or services for all kinds of things. But so I think it's a really cool time as a dev to be able to just use all these things like this. So
Yeah, I remember way back in the day building custom login pages for people with Java, and then like having crazy backends that took forever to get running, and then
yeah.
all that burdens on you, and it doesn't have to be that way anymore, which is great. Like it is the like from people that have been in the industry for a long time. So if you don't know who I am, I've been in the industry. It'll be my 15th year next year in the industry. I've built things from Java, C#, and then like front end Angular, et cetera, all the way up to the Jamstack when the Jamstack started to become popular. So I've seen the industry change a lot in the last 15 years. And it blows my mind to be like, wow, I used to ship CDs of software to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, which like to people today would be like, wait, what? You did what? And like, yeah, you'd
Yeah.
FedEx it overnight to somebody, they'd install it on their machine, and then at that point they could get updates through the internet.
Yeah.
Um,
No, for sure.
yeah, which is wild to people. So now we
Yeah.
don't have to do that kind of stuff, and I'm excited with the sort of direction that everybody's going in, and where we're going to end up probably in another 5 years or so, where it's even easier to get started and it's even better, and you don't have to rely on a bunch of different people. It's all just, hey, if I just add this component or this product, it will do all of this for me, which is where we want to be.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And I'm laughing about putting stuff on CDs. Like I remember, my backup system before was always, burning CDs, and
Yep.
it's like I have a whole pile of them, and they're completely useless now because, like, I mean, I think whatever I had on there is in the cloud now, but I basically have about 100 coasters, I guess, for if I have
Yeah.
a party.
Yep.
So I guess, yeah, so let's talk about Clerk in terms of like where do we want to start with the project here? So we're gonna assume like let's create some kind of React app, and then we want to kind of hook it up with Clerk for user identity. Is that what we want to do?
Yeah. Yeah. We can do that.
Okay, so let's just switch to pairing view here as I scratch my nose. What should we create? Do you want to create like a create React app, a Next app, or
Let's
what would you
do
like to do?
let's do next.
Okay,
I like
so I'm just
next.
gonna. Yeah. All right. Cool. Thank you, Fig. If folks haven't ever heard of Fig, check out fig.io. That's what that IntelliSense is in my terminal is right now. So let's call this Clerk Next. I don't know. Trying to give it a cool name.
Yep, that's cool enough for me. That's what I call almost every demo project I do.
Clerk dash demo 1, clerk dash
Yep.
demo 200.
Yep.
All right, cool.
That's exactly it.
Okay, so let's just open this up in VS Code. Okay, so we've got a standard, like out of the box Next app here. I'll just start it up just to make sure we're all good here. Uh, all right, so we're running there, and let's see what we got here. Okay, so we're all up and running, so that's good. Okay.
Perfect. So the first thing you want to do is you probably want to go to clerk.dev because you need to sign up for an account. And this, just to give you an idea, this sign up flow that you're going through is the same. We're using the same, like we're using Clerk to sign customers up. So what you see here is kind of a intro into what Clerk looks like.
Okay, that's good. I'd say it'd be kind of not a
weird
good thing if you were using something else. Yeah, we work at Clerk, but we're using auth0 to our login.
Exactly.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna keep it simple, and I'm just gonna connect with GitHub. Yes, authorized Clerk Inc. I trust you because James told me you're good people.
Yeah,
so.
I'm good people. So now this is the first setup screen that you see when you create an application. Essentially, you can give your application a name, so whatever you want to call it, and this is what the users would see when they go to log in.
Okay.
So now you have that.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's not a character limit. At this point, because you're using a free account, you can choose how you want your strategy to be, right? So we could pick email address and passwords, or we could do just magic links. That's entirely up to you. Neither of them really affect you as a developer. It just affects the flow that a user goes through. So there's no extra work if you choose passwords. There's no extra work if you choose just magic links. That's entirely up to you, whatever you feel like.
Okay, I'll go with passwords just so we're not kind of popping out of windows and stuff, because I imagine the magic links I'll have to go to my mail and then.
Yep.
So,
correct.
And it's not because I don't like magic links. It's just more to keep the flow going. There's email or username, so I can pick either.
You can do either, or you can do both. So if you want the users to require like a username or an email address, they can use either or. They can just select that button right out of the box, and it will just slide across, and that will be an extra option that your users will see when they attempt to sign up or sign in.
Oh, okay. I'm going to pop it on just for fun. Or no, I'll just leave email for now.
And then here is where you get to choose essentially your social logins. With a free account, you get to choose 3 that you can use at any time. We offer 15 total, and we add more all the time. Or you could use Web3 authentication if you were a big Web3 fan. And then, if you select whichever ones you want, you can choose up to 3. What's cool about the way that Clerk works is when you use the development environment, we use our own OAuth to do this. So you don't have to have already had your account approved with Twitter or Microsoft or LinkedIn. You can do all the work and then go and apply for those like applications as a developer so that you get approved, and then you can just swap out the credentials, which makes it really easy.
I was gonna ask because there's that whole step of setting up like the redirect URL, and like it's not necessarily super complicated, but it's kind of tedious to do. So it's kind of nice that we get this out of the box like that.
Yeah. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible to get started, and then once you go productionize, we try and make that part as easy as possible as well. So feel free to pick 3, and then just there should be a finish button at the bottom or a continue button.
One thing I find interesting, this is the first time I see a platform that has Web3 logins baked into it. I don't know if others do that, but that's interesting to see.
We're trying to make sure that if there's a particular kind of app or product you're trying to build, that we can support what you need.
Yeah.
You've now sort of landed in your dashboard. This is where everything sort of happens out of the box.
Okay.
You can preview what your components look like without any code. On the left-hand
Oh, okay.
side, if you click the sign up and sign in there, this will show you what they will look like to the user. So you can
Oh,
see
nice.
that's what it looks like right out of the box. And then you can actually customize these a bit later when we start coding. We can customize these and make them look however we want. This is what a standard Clerk login looks like for your users.
Mm-hmm. No, this is nice. It's nice having a pre-made, pretty standardized component, which, like you said, you can still customize it if you'd like to. But I like this approach because it's removing friction right away from me just getting started, you know?
Right.
So,
Yeah. I mean, there are offerings out there that just, oh, we're highly customizable because you get to use our API. But then you
yeah.
have to build everything to make the API work, which is a lot of extra friction that nobody really wants. So we try and avoid that as
Yeah.
much as possible. Here's where you can manage all sorts of things. So in this area here, like on the left-hand side, you've got users. So if you had a user sign up, they would show up in the
Yeah.
user section. And if you wanted to ever change something, like nobody signs up with Twitch, for example,
Yeah.
right? But we keep getting requests for Facebook. You could turn that off and then immediately turn Facebook on, and it will immediately update and you'll be good to go. The piece that we need to make our app work today is under your API keys, which is on the bottom.
I'm going to expose them. I'll probably take that off.
No,
the
you're
screen,
good to go because they'll all be hidden except from one, which is the front-end API, which is client-side anyway.
Okay.
So you're good to go there. So you can copy that front-end API key because we're going to need that. And for the rest of this demo, we probably won't need any of the others, depending on how far we get, but we may come back and get some more if we need them. And that's all we need to get started with Clerk. So you can go back to the Next.js app now, and we'll create a .env.local so that we can put our environmental in there. And it's going to be, the key is next_public _ clerk _ front end _ API. And then that's just the API key that you just had saved. And I believe that is all you need for now. And now we can install the one package that you're going to need, which is npm install @clerk/next.js.
Okay, so there's framework-specific implementations that we can pull?
So we have one for Next.js. We have a React package that works with other frameworks such as React or Redwood or Gatsby. We have an Expo package for Expo if you're doing mobile apps. We offer a plethora, and our Next.js one is a bit unique because we also offer like API routes and stuff like that if you want to use the APIs, which is always super cool. Now to get Clerk set up and your authentication to get set up, you're just going to go to your app.js file. And there's an import that is Clerk provider. So you just need to import Clerk provider.
Is it a named export or?
Yes. From Next.js there. Perfect. And then all you have to do is wrap your component in Clerk provider.
Okay. Perfect. And then I'm assuming we'll consume it at some point.
And then to actually use a bit further so that we actually see a login screen, we can now, because everything's wrapped in this provider, we can now basically do whatever we want with Clerk. We've made this as easy as possible. So we have a few components called is signed in, is signed out, and then we're going to use a sign-in component and a user profile component. So signed in is part of that Clerk provider. So in the same import for Clerk provider, you're just going to do comma and then signed in with a capital S. And
there we go.
Yep. And you want signed out as well. And then we'll also do the sign in, which is the top one. And then we're also going to use user button. So these are all pre-built components in some nature, or they're some sort of component that wraps a hook. So what we can do here inside of our Clerk provider, we can do signed in. We'll start there. You want to actually wrap the component in that signed in provider.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And that essentially, at that point, your routes are protected. So unless you're signed in, you can't actually hit the Next.js app. And then underneath your signed in, do the sign out. So signed out, sorry. And then we'll also wrap the sign in button inside of that signed out. So if they're signed out, they can sign in.
Like that, you mean?
Out. It doesn't matter where you put it. You've already started at the bottom, right? So hold on, I'm just trying to see what we're doing here. I didn't explain it very well. The signed out is actually it's me. I'm not very good with instructions. The signed out will be below the signed in, so it will be a separate So you got your signed in, and then underneath signed out.
Okay, just like this. Okay.
Yeah, but you want to make it an open and close tag because we're going to put something inside of it.
Okay, cool.
So not self-closed, it's open and closed. Yep.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I'm not sure why Predator is not kicking in.
And then inside of that, we're going to use the sign in.
Okay. Or sign in or signed in?
Yep. Nope, sign in. Okay. So essentially what's happening here, before we go any further, we have two options here. If the user is signed in, we'll present them with the Next.js application, so they're allowed to view whatever's happening. If they're signed out, we'll present them with the sign-in page. And what's cool about Clerk is if they don't have an account, but they sign up with like social logins, for example, like they hit the Google, we'll just create them an account and they won't even know that it's happening. So from now, I think we can just boot it up and see what happens.
All right, cool. Yeah, I was just checking why Predator is not kicking in, but not the end of the world.
Mine never seems to work. Sometimes it works, and then the next time I use it on stream, it's just like, I don't know what this is. Like, oh, okay, thanks.
All right, so we're good here. Okay, so
as you can see,
we could center it and stuff, but like we've got the page already.
Yep. So as you can see, because you're not signed in, it's asking you to sign in. So pick a social login, I guess, whichever one you prefer. And we'll redirect you, ask if you want to authorize us. Click the authorize button. And you'll get redirected to the Next.js application. Ooh, what does that say? I can't see.
It's saying unable to process. Is it maybe not picking up our key?
You shouldn't even see that screen if it's not picking up the key. Let me just make sure that let's just make sure there's not something funky happening on our end.
Just making sure that env local frontend API.
That work for me. Let me try.
Let's see here. I guess this won't load anything, but I just wanted to see. Okay, that's responding. Okay, no, that makes sense. It's not a page, it's just a service. Okay, let's see here.
Okay, that seems to be working. That should have been picked up. Go back to our login page. Let's see if there may be, if we just go back and then we just try a different social login for now, and maybe there's some weirdness going on. I just tried it with Google on my end and it works. So if something weird happens, something weird going on with Twitter.
Yeah, okay. That's why I picked 3. And I'm laughing because I exposed my work email again.
Email Nick.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Okay, cool. I really like this. This is like, it was it was quick to put in place, and I have like you said, I have protected routes right away. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah. And so right now, you could start doing things such as, checking the user, getting their email address from our user context. Like there's a lot of stuff we can do now. But the first thing I want to show is our user button. So if you go back to the code, and then we go back to our app.js, and inside that signed in, above the component, just put in the user button that we have, and hit save, and then just go back, and you'll see in the top left-hand corner, it now has this user button. And this is for the user to be able to manage their accounts and sign out of an account. So if you click manage account, just don't scroll all the way down, because there is a place where you can see what IPs you're logged into. Just trying to save you. I don't think it really matters, but just in case. So in here, they can do a lot of things. So one, they could change their primary email address. They can add different connected accounts. So if they wanted to connect their Twitter and Google together, they can do all of that. And then I would stop scrolling about now.
Okay.
They can add a part. So if your application requires a password, but the user
Yeah.
signed up with social login, right? So they signed in with their Google account, but you require
Hmm.
passwords. They can go in here and add that password. So now they have
Okay.
the option of logging in with their email and password or their social login. So we can do both, even though
Hmm.
they signed up originally with Google. And none of this is
Okay.
required for you to code or do anything with it. It just works, just with magic that we like to put out. So that's the easy stuff. Authentication is done. We can
Hmm.
close the stream down. We can go home early on a Friday. We can kind of
Yeah.
chill out.
That's it. We're done.
Yeah, that easy peasy. So that's how easy it is to at least get started with Clerk. You can see by how many lines of code we've written and added authentication that's completely production. Like you can deploy this to production and it's ready to go. You know, it's under 10 lines of code and we're already here. Um,
Hmm.
and now we can start doing things either on the client side or the server side, depending on what we
Okay.
want to do. So, a good example that I like to use is like, what if we needed to say, welcome, Nick, right?
Hmm.
That might be something you
Yeah.
want to show on the index page. So, when they're
Yeah.
signed in, you basically have a bunch of hooks that we provide to you that you can
Okay.
use. So, there is a couple different ones you can use. We have use auth, and that's a named
Okay.
import as well. So you import that at the top, and that gives you access to things like is loaded. So is loaded as an option, user ID, session ID, and get token, and those are all can be imported as destructured properties.
Okay. Nice.
So
Okay.
yeah,
So is
you can have all sorts of
signing.
options there. So I'll back up a little bit, but get token allows you to
Yeah.
essentially pull in an integration. So if you happen to be using Hasura or Firebase or Superbase or nhost or whoever, we offer an integration with them that essentially allows you to get that token and then go and insert something into another database. But we'll back up a bit more and we'll just get the user and we'll start playing around with that. So if you
Okay.
import at the top, instead of use auth, let's
Okay.
import use user.
Okay. I like the auto imports use user, except I
Is it
don't know how
use
to
user?
spell.
Use user essentially allows you to use the user object. So you can use this by destructuring use user. So instead of doing const user, you can just destructure it and we'll give you access to is loaded, is
Okay.
signed in, and then the user. The user
Okay.
object there contains all sorts of user goodies, such as the first name, the last name, your email address, a
Okay.
bunch of other information that you might need. So if
Gotcha.
you start with like maybe we just console log user out and see what's inside of it, that might be good for the user, like just people watching and a better
Yeah.
understanding
Yeah. For
of
sure.
kind of what's happening.
Cool. Let's save this. All right.
And of
Let's
course,
come
we're
back.
already protected because obviously you have to be on that page. You have to be signed in to actually see the page. But if you look in the console, there should be a user object there.
Yeah. I'll just zoom in a bit here.
And you'll just zoom in a bit and
Yeah.
take a look and see. And you see it's got lots of information in there. First name, last name, email, all the email addresses attached, how you signed
Okay.
up for your account, your profile picture, all these things that you need as a developer to build an application, right? At
Yeah.
some point, you're probably going to need their email address if they're paying for a subscription, or you're going to need that to, you know, their first and last name to welcome them the first time, all those kinds of important things that you might need. So this use user allows you to essentially say, hey, okay, if they're signed in, I want to
Yeah.
present them with a hello, Nick, right? And those things
Yeah.
can
Exactly.
happen using this hook. Why don't we change the welcome Next.js to welcome user dot first name or something, just to
Yeah.
kind of show how that works.
Let's do here. First name. There we go. What did it not like that when I removed that?
Oh, because it the way that they did it, they had an A tag.
So
There
there
you
we
go.
go. Welcome, Nick.
Yeah,
Cool.
so you can immediately on the client side access important information that you would normally probably either have to decode your JWT and pull that information from there, or send a server request to get all the user information. With
Yeah.
Clerk, we make it as easy as possible, which is really important for users that don't feel comfortable playing around with JWTs. Like, I hate playing with JWTs because I've seen horror stories, and I'm sure you've seen horror stories of things being leaked, and then people have access to all the JWTs, and it's scary
Yeah,
time.
there's you really do want to leave authentication to the experts, because like one place I worked at, we ended up with like this custom SAML,
Yep.
and it one, I had to maintain it, and it was buggy because it was built by a contractor that I acquired it from, and then eventually we moved to a out of the box product because it just made more sense. I know you keep saying it's easy, but I just like how much you get out of the box here, like all
Right.
that information just right away, because as a developer, you just want to build your product, and I like that all these tools are just like, or the info is available to you right away. So this is really cool.
Right. Yeah,
Cool,
that's
cool.
that's kind of the idea, is that you get to get out of your way, right? Like, you just like, okay,
Yeah,
I've picked an authentication or user identity platform. I've installed it. I'm signed in. I want to build the rest of my app. I don't
yeah,
want to have to worry about building forms, or how do they reset their password, or how do they manage their account. Like, all that stuff goes away, which makes developers' life a bit easier or at least a bit less stressful, maybe is the right word, where you can
yeah.
focus on the important features, right? Like the things that you care about as a developer, versus like, this is the 100th time I've built an authentication platform for my
Yeah.
new job or as a contractor or whoever. We also give you things like access to the session. So you can
Okay.
access the session to see when they were, you get some public information, you get expired, when things expire, all that kind of stuff. Again, we're very good at this. You can do use session is the import.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Cool.
and if you wanted it separately from the user, right? So if you just wanted session information for some reason, you can just use session, and then inside of there is a bunch of session information that you might need, like last active or some metadata, or when is it going to expire, all those kinds of things that you may need to
Okay.
drive your application.
So
And
that's kind
inside that session object that you can deconstruct, you can pull it out there.
yeah, I was just gonna see what was in here. Okay, is
It's in that. Yep.
session.
So we
Yeah,
always
so
have these. We always have is loaded and is signed in to
okay.
protect you as a user. So if you're using it on the client side, there
Yeah.
could be a chance, right, where a session has expired, but they haven't been redirected back to the homepage yet,
Okay.
and you're trying to access a bunch of information at the same time, and then Clerk hasn't loaded yet, or something like that. There's a bunch of different scenarios. So the is
Yeah.
loaded, you can essentially just do is loaded. If it's false, just return null. And that
Okay.
immediately protects you from trying to load more information before you actually have access to it. And then
Oh,
the same
okay.
is signed in, right? If they're not signed in, you could just push them back to the homepage or
Okay.
the login screen.
I'm just seeing what's in session here.
Did you
What the
deconstruct the session at the top when you did
Oh,
use
yeah, I
session?
did, yeah. Well, I'll do this instead and see, but I thought it was just session.
The session should be an object. Oh, it's because it's a object.
Oh,
That's
okay.
right.
Okay,
We
yeah,
need to
gotcha,
go a bit.
gotcha.
We need to go one deeper. That was all. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's a bunch of stuff in there. Sort of important session information you may need on a client side. You may never need any of this, but there are some cases where you may want to see, like, oh, when was their last active token? Get tokens
Okay.
expire. When did it expire at? All of those kinds of things that are really important. There are other hooks, right, that we could go into, but it's
Yeah.
more fact finding. Like, we have organizations, which allows you to build business to business SaaS applications, but that's a
Okay.
bit more of a complex use case. What we could do is kind of dig into sort of some Next.js features, like
Okay.
things that are available in Next.js that normally would require you to have like a node server somewhere, right? Because that's the
Okay,
power of
gotcha.
Next.js. We have things like APIs, and we can do some cool stuff. So I guess we could start with just a basic API. So that
Okay.
there's always one included that's hello, so we can use that. we provide you with essentially two types of wrappers. And each one of these wrappers depends on what you want to do. So there's require auth and with auth. Require auth, as the name states, you have to be logged in to hit this API. This immediately protects it from anybody that is not logged into a session.
Okay.
And then the with auth allows you to essentially run this, but maybe you just want some auth information. So maybe they have auth information that you may want. So what we could do here is we can actually change this and we can require auth and then maybe return your name instead of John Doe. We can just return name. So require auth. I always forget how this works. I apologize. I had to read my own docs. So it's import.
It's good you got docs.
Yeah, I've got docs and they're really good. There's just import and then it's named. So it's require auth.
Okay. All right.
And that's it's actually from Clerk Next.js/API. So that you don't have to import everything. You just import the API specific stuff. And then all you do is where you have export default function, you actually just wrap the function instead. So it would just be export default. And then instead of function, just wrap the actual function. So get rid of handler and the word function and just put require auth.
Okay. And this will return a function, which is the API.
Yep. And then
so it takes the request. It's not like in the response. What am I missing? Require.
Are you using TypeScript? I can't actually see well enough. No, you're just using JS, right? So it should just be.
Oh, it's you're seeing my inlay hints. Hold on a sec. Yeah, no, I'll hide that.
Oh, because you need to wrap it in a set of parentheses. So require auth wraps the request and the response. So you should have two parentheses on one side and then one on the other.
Okay, I gotcha. Oh, down here. Okay. Like that, right? Because it's the handler. Just need an arrow function. Yeah, okay.
Perfect. Cool. And then at this point, in that request, you'll actually be able to access things such as the user ID, for example. So under there'll be request.auth. So you can just we can just log it out and see what's inside a request. So if you just log out request.auth, and that will have like authentication information inside of it, such as the user ID and the session ID and a bunch of other stuff that you could use.
I'm just going to run the API so it does it logs it in the server.
We may get an error because there may not be an API key.
Oh, yeah. We don't have an API key.
Is that? I just want to make sure that's the error.
Yeah.
Hey. So we just need to go and get that.
That's very helpful.
Yeah, we try and do our best. This was very intentional. So you'll need to grab that API key off camera so that you don't expose it if you care. So yeah, there should be an API key in there.
Okay, and let's go back. I should be logged in. Dashboard. All right, I'm just going to my app again, and then API keys for developers, and under backend keys, I create one, I guess.
You didn't even need to create one. You can use the default one.
Okay. Copy that, and let me just take this off screen for a sec.
Look at us being secure, not exposing keys and everything.
Expert. Yeah, well, I'm laughing because one stream I did with somebody who's like a cloud expert was I exposed AWS keys 3 times. It wasn't a big deal because like I reset it right away, but it was just funny. I was like all meticulous about doing it off screen, and then I went back in my history in the terminal and it showed up.
I've done that.
I was like, so
yeah, I've done that a few times.
In terms of the API key, what should it be named?
It's clerk_API_key.
All right, I'll bring this back here, and then we'll get back into business. If folks are wondering, there's a really handy VS Code extension called Cloak. So they're there, but it's hidden.
Yep, one of the best tools out there if you do any streaming is that, for sure.
All right, I'm gonna just stop the server, I imagine.
Yep, just restart the server, and then you should, in theory, be able to hit that API now, and it should just work.
Okay, there we go.
Ta-da.
So John Doe is expected. And here we go. So this is my session and some other info.
Yep.
Okay.
So the user ID there can be essentially used to retrieve all sorts of information about the user. So essentially, that becomes like like your database requests, right? Where you may have an identifier that you can use to request sort of
Hmm.
information about the user. And that's the same idea here, is that with that API key now, you can do a bunch of different things. You can grab all the user information that you'd ever want, such as their email address or first name, etc.,
Okay.
etc. So we're going to go and grab your user's information, right? So we're going to try and do that so we can get the user's name. So we can do that. So let me just pull up a good example for myself so that I don't
Okay.
steer you wrong, because that's my worst fear, is we steer you wrong and no one believes
Okay.
me that Clerk is good.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. So at this point, you essentially have ways to grab whatever we want. This is where we all just pause while I scramble through the docs again to remember how to grab information.
That's okay. I'll break out my bagpipe. I need to practice.
There you go. Perfect. That sounds good. We all like a good tune.
Yeah.
Copyright
Amazing
free
Grace,
music is
anybody?
always good. I'm good with that one. That one's always a good one. uh,
Anyways. um, yeah, so while you're looking that up, I saw there's a couple other people that joined. So right now what we're doing is we're working with the Next.js API here. And so Next.js has a default API function out of the box here, just the typical hello there. And what we've done is we've wrapped it with the require auth that's available to you in the Clerk package. And this allows you to potentially say like, hey, you're not logged in, you can't have access to whatever we would typically give, and we can send a different response. We could probably even just say forbidden maybe, but we could also just do something else. So that's what we're kind of looking at right now. And then we console logged out, just taking a peek at what you get out of the request.auth object here. So there's a lot of good information here if you like letters and numbers. So, all right.
who doesn't like letters and numbers? Am I right?
Yeah,
Who doesn't?
exactly.
Okay, so I think we can just use the standard Node API to do this. Let's see here. I can't remember off the top of my head if there is a Next.js wrapper for this. I should know because
Okay.
I use Next.js like every day, and everything I use is Next.js, but that's neither here nor there. And all of my SASs are written with Clerk and Next.js, so I should really know. But essentially, there is an API that we have for the backend API, which we can use
Okay.
here. It works all the same. Essentially, all you need is the API, which we already have, and we should be able to just make a request using. I wonder if it's in. Now I'm questioning myself. So let me look and see if I can.
Okay. Okay, we got claims here too. Yeah. Okay. This reminds me of SAML.
Are you getting flashbacks already to like
Yeah,
SAML
yeah.
stuff? Yeah. Let me just pull this up.
Okay, so now I can do get token. Well, for now, what I can do is if session request dot auth dot session ID. I'm just gonna do something while you're checking that out. So
Yeah.
what I'm gonna
Go
do
for
is
it.
I'm just gonna see like if you have a session ID, I'm gonna return what you normally see here, and then if you don't, then we can just say like, oh, sorry, you're not logged in. If we do this, else we could say 403, and then I don't think we need. Oh, we can give something error. No dice.
So
There.
I think there's an easier way that we could probably do this. I think then
Yeah. No, if you
yeah.
have an example, yeah, for sure.
Let me see if I can pull up the example of get user by ID.
There's messaging too if you want to paste in the software we're
Oh, there is. Okay,
streaming on.
cool.
Yeah, there's a little message icon, or you should have one.
Perfect. Let me send you the docs so that I'm not the one.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That might make it a bit easier
All right.
for us. Essentially, we have the option to use like fetch or something to pull in from the API, and we should just be able to pull via the ID that we have already. And then there should be one that just says like retrieve a user. I think it's the top one.
Okay, yeah.
So essentially what you do is you use the API to retrieve a user if you wanted to, and to pull this information down, just like any standard fetch. Obviously, we're already protected because the API route is protected. You have to have an ID. All those kinds of things are already protected. So you should just be able to make that request.
All right. Let me just make this async in here. Okay, let's just comment this out for a minute. All right, so I've got the API here. So const response equals fetch. And we're going to do here. And I'm going to pass in the user ID.
So you need just a header for this because we're using just standard API fetch. The header is the bearer token, which is your Clerk API key.
Am I pulling that off of the request?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can use process.env.
Oh yeah,
API because you have access to it, right? So we can do it that way.
Somebody made a spelling mistake apparently at some point with GitHub Copilot. Okay, so that looks good. So, and this is just a get, right? It's not a.
I want to say yes. It is a get indeed. Yep. Sorry.
Okay. And in terms of the getting the user with the ID parameter here, that
would be that user ID that you can get from the request. So if you remember in the original request.
That. Yeah. Okay. So let's just turn this into a template string. Okay. And so request dot, where was it? User?
It's request.auth.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And then .user ID it should be. Yep.
Okay.
Now this is like the world's most complicated way to interact with this is the most complicated our API actually gets in general.
And it's going to return the user, right?
Yep, it's going to return the user as an object. So
okay, cool. All right, so let's do that and we'll get an object. I'll just console log that out for a sec.
Yep. And make sure that we are doing it right. Good start point.
Okay, and doesn't matter about the rest there for now. Let's just go back here. Okay. Oh, it's compiling. Yes, compiling. All right, there we go. Okay, so it did give us, it gave us the whole thing here.
So this is the exact same thing as like that use user hook. That is the same content is being returned right now. So you can just, return whatever you want as part of this object.
Okay, gotcha. So I could even do this. So I could just do, was it first
name? Yep. You can see the object down. Yeah. It's first underscore name.
I just need to learn to read. All right. And then we could do this here. Okay. And if I come here now. Oh, user is not defined. Oh, that's me console logging because I just structured. Sorry.
Of course, Next.js has things like SSR, right? So we don't have to use a full API, right? Maybe we want to make our whole application SSR, and Clerk supports that. We have two SSR modes too, to kind of continue on like API and backends, is that we have a full SSR mode, and this full SSR mode actually includes the user as part of the request. So when you do your SSR, you can have access to that user immediately. So soon if they're logged in on that page, you can pull their first name or last name or email, and maybe you need to send that to a database beforehand.
Okay.
So you kind of have like basically any kind of Next.js functionality that you can think of, we can give you access to. And we try and make it as easy as possible to do this. We have other things that you can do with users. Like if you wanted to update a user, you could update, their whatever kind of email using the same function that you have there. You can do posts and update their ID. Maybe their first name is incorrect or something like that. Those are all possible. One of my favorite features about Clerk, I feel like I'm just going off on a tangent right now, but one of my favorite features of Clerk is the ability to have this metadata that we call it. So we have public and private metadata, which you have access to as a developer. So if you migrate off, let's say you migrate off another auth provider, and you wanted to have some sort of metadata that identified that they were an old user before the merge or before the migration, you can add that to a set of metadata, and you can have access to that at any point. Same
Okay.
with if you wanted to make a role, for example. Like if you
Gotcha.
or everybody in the beginning had a role of, member, and then in the
Hmm.
future you may have a couple of admins, like you can do those kinds of things without having to have an additional database or an additional data store. All of those things are available to you. And we can do that in here just to show it off really, really quickly.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
There's a patch method, which is in the docs that I sent you, the same docs. It might be easier to read it from there, but there's a patch method called ID/metadata. It allows you to essentially set all of that kind of data. It says merge and update
Update easy.
users metadata. It's the one below that. Yep,
Okay,
that
yeah.
one. Yep. And so we
Okay.
have 3 types of metadata. There's public metadata, which would be available on the client. So you can grab that from the front end at any point.
Okay.
Then we have private metadata, which is only visible in the back end. So you
Hmm.
can't see it from there. And then we have unsafe, which essentially it can't be modified from the front end and is basically something that you want to store that you can't modify from the front end. And
Hmm.
maybe it's a bit secret that you want to keep very, very secret. That's what unsafe
Okay.
metadata is. And private metadata can't be shown on the front end, but can be updated from the front end. So, for example, you
Okay.
could update it from there, but you wouldn't be able to see that on the client side. But with the API, you can essentially do all 3, and we can just choose to update public metadata with some sort of data, and we can see how that kind of plays out.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, I just
Cool.
kind of want to mention again, so like, because there's a few other people that joined, but it was I don't want to say super trivial, but it was I hate using the term easy, but
Mm-hmm.
it did feel pretty quick to get set up with Clerk. We were able to get our login page. We can sign in, sign out. We can add a button to just view our profile, modify it, and all that was just put stuff in place in a really quick manner. And now we're kind of using more powerful features here. We're using like the API. Like this is not stuff people necessarily have to use just to get their stuff all up and running.
Yeah, these are the extras of things that you
Yeah.
may not need, but you could use to kind of enhance your application.
Okay, cool. So let's try something here. So, okay, so let me just put this here, and that's going to be a patch, right? So I'm just going to copy the headers here and just
Yep.
put it up top here so we can just reuse it. Okay. There. Okay, and I'm still trying to figure out why Prettier is not working. I must have done something, but
This is going to
anyways.
be me, and after we finish streaming here, I'm going to be streaming on my own channel, and I'll be like, "Why is
Okay.
my prettier not working? I can't figure this out." And it'll be the whole stream. It'll be the exact same thing. So
Yeah, exactly. Cool. All right, so we got this here again. So we just want our headers there. And did I take the rest out or? Okay, hold on a sec. Let's do toggle the word wrap. Okay, yeah, that's all good still. Is that
mm-hmm.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so now we want to like maybe change something in the metadata like you were saying. So we're gonna do another fetch.
Yep.
And there, let's just grab this. And I need to put in the user ID. I'm just going to pull this out. Just doing a bit of cleanup here. I think we've got enough time, so we're okay.
Yeah.
Okay, rec auth. Yeah, auth user ID. Yeah, okay. There, auth ID. Okay, we got that. And we can put that in over here too. Okay, that's good. And we're going to need our init with headers again. And what's it not liking? Oh, it's because I'm using the same
User response. Yep.
I'm going to do some bad naming. Response to. That's terrible naming.
It's just as good as response.
Yeah. I could get fired for using response to, but hashtag YOLO. All right,
Yep.
we got the headers. We need the method in here too.
Yep.
Which will be put, like you said, right?
It's yeah. Yep.
Or was it
because
put or patch? I can't remember. Yeah.
It's patch. So
yeah, patch. Sorry, not put.
Yep.
All right. Okay there, and we're gonna have to put in a body in here
Yep.
with what we want to change. Okay, and is it metadata right within the body or?
Yes. So it's just the inside the body. You'll see that there's all the different types of metadata that you want to use. So we can just
Oh
use
yeah,
public
okay,
metadata.
okay, yeah. And then for this here, is it? What was I gonna say? It's just key value pairs now? I'm not sure why it's
Yeah.
not copying the public part.
Yep.
Okay, so there
And
and
in here, it can be whatever you want. It's completely freestyle. So you could just do, member, role member,
free.
or whatever you want.
I'm going freestyle. I'm just like
There you
making
go.
my metadata all dirty. Okay, cool. Now, okay. Now, normally I wouldn't do this, but like I'm gonna fetch the user again after we've
Yep.
updated it, just so it's not like we're saying we're pulling the same thing that we just passed. But okay,
Right.
so let's do this here. I'm gonna get the user ID again. Good old response 3, and then here we're gonna wait the response. Actually, I do need to wait for the responses up here. Await. Well, I don't really need the JSON, but it's just good to. I think I still need to wait for it though. I'm just gonna do bad naming here. Await. Do not do this at home, kids.
Yeah.
Const
And nobody snitch
y.
on us for using bad variable names like T's and response to.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now we got our response 3 here. And then we're going to say get the JSON here, which should be the user. And then in here, I have public metadata right away, or
Yeah,
is it
yeah. You
on?
should you should have it. I want to say it's just directly on the root of the response object, so you should just have it.
Okay. All right. I'm going to just do this. Actually, you know what? Just going to return public metadata. It's all public, so I mean, there's nothing dirty
Yeah.
laundry wise in there, I don't think. All right, so just to recap what we're doing, because I typed a lot there. So we did our initial response just to get the user, and then from there, I'm using that user ID. We're gonna do the patch. We're adding some public metadata with the key free and the value style, and then we're updating that. And then, normally you would do checks to make sure it was successful and stuff, but I'm bypassing all that guarding right now. And then here we're going to say, okay, let's go get the user with the updated public metadata, and we should hopefully have some public metadata now. So where is it? There we go. User, oh, okay, that's just me typing incorrectly. User is where, up here. If this was TypeScript, it would be screaming at me, so that would have fixed that. Invalid response. Okay, this is probably me. You know what we can do? We can console log it for now. So let's see here. Let's see what we get after the first response. Console.log. Let's just do user updated. It's probably me. So there we go. And then let's just omit this for the time being. Okay. And I'll open up the logs again. Let's go down here. API resolved without sending a response for. Okay, no, that's just me. Okay, so we got user update. It's returning an error. Content type is not support.
Oh, we probably need the header content type JSON. We probably forgot to put the content.
Yeah. That's my bad. I don't think I need to type it like that, right? It's just content type when it's in this format, or does it?
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
the right. Yep, that's the right one, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Now we're good. Okay. So let's request body invalid. Okay. This is probably not clerk. This is me just coding live. So let's see what happened here. Request body is invalid. Please consult the API documentation. So maybe it's the public metadata, because here, let's just go back.
Object, right? Yep, that's an object.
Okay. And it's on the body. Okay. So what did it not like? I'm just going to backpedal real quick to make sure there's nothing I broke from before.
Yep.
Again, this is the joys of live coding. Okay.
It wouldn't
API
be fun.
resolved without, yeah. Okay, didn't resolve without a response, but everything's good. Okay, so there's something wrong in this portion here. So We have the, just want to make sure this is correct. So that is, we put in the user
Yep.
ID to update metadata, and then we're doing a patch. So maybe it's the body. Like, let me go back to the docs just to make sure.
Yeah. Just make sure that we didn't miss something there.
Okay, authorization. V1 users, I had the user ID metadata, that's right. Public metadata, it's an object in the body. So what doesn't it like? It's weird, I'm not getting unprocessable entity. It's not that. Let's see. Just gonna make sure there's no mistakes here. Okay, that's good. Is there an example in the docs maybe that I can?
I'm just looking for the examples right now
Yeah,
outside of the reference. So let's see here.
pretty sure that's right.
It
Body.
looks
Yeah,
it
no,
looks right. It looks right to me from what I can see. Body
yeah.
as an object, public metadata as an object with a key value pair. So it looks right to me too. Hold on,
Okay.
let me see.
Oh, I don't need to get the metadata on that last one though. I'm just getting the user again, right?
Yep.
The last one. That's not the error, but let's see here. If I do this, this should, like, we'll just ignore this for a sec. I just want to see if we get the user ID and then we pass in all that stuff, headers. We've got the headers application JSON, that's right. Let's just come back here for a sec. Okay, so I'm not getting any public metadata back. Like, we haven't updated anything, but
Right.
that is valid though. Okay, so that's good. So I think it's the body, but why? Okay, user updated. Let's see. I don't know
Mm,
if, I wonder if it has to be, it wouldn't be metadata and then public, would it?
I don't. Yeah, I don't think so. Not based
Yeah,
upon the docs or how we use metadata. It should just be what you have
yeah.
there. But
I wonder, let me just pass empty for a minute, which I know is not doing anything, but I wonder,
yep,
just want to see.
that's always a good. That's always a good start point.
Okay, so that's good. So that passes. So, I mean, it does a patch with nothing, but okay, so it's clearly something in the body.
Maybe it needs to be. I was
I'm
like,
gonna
maybe it
check the
needs
docs.
to everything to be like the key and value pair to be in a string, maybe. So it would be free
Oh, wait,
in a string.
I know what it is. You're right. Hold on a sec. This is correct. I forgot to stringify it.
Oh, yeah.
That's like I told you, it's probably me. Okay, I think that should be okay. So let's try this again. Yeah, okay, there we go.
There we
So,
go. All right. Yay.
uh, hey, oh, I just got somebody else in the chat. Hey, Thomas, salut, how's it going? Okay, yeah. So to be clear, Clerk works fine. It was just me not JSON stringifying a body. That's what happens when you live code. So, but this is really cool though. So like I can just add whatever kind of data I need. I mean, you would want to put stuff that's relevant to the user.
Right.
Obviously, you don't want to pile on stuff there, but this is really cool. I'm trying to think if we go back to the docs. Okay, so you're saying we can do the public metadata, which is obviously viewable publicly, can be updated. Private can be updated even from the client side, but it can never be exposed. And unsafe metadata it's never exposed to the client, and it can only be updated via the server. Is that right?
That sounds right. I think what you said
Yeah.
is
Okay.
right, but I always get them. I think I always get them switched. But so unsafe metadata can be updated from both the front end and the back end, as well as public metadata. And then private metadata can only be updated from the back end and is not visible on the client side. That sounds right.
Okay. Cool.
I
Cool.
think my brain with metadata, I always get them all mixed up. So,
It's the meta mix up Fridays.
yeah,
It's all
exactly,
good. It's all
exactly.
good. Yeah, but
Uh,
this is really great. I like how obviously my little slip up with not JSON stringifying things slowed us
mhm.
down, but it's pretty cool that you can, I mean, update it via the API. But again, like I like the simplicity of being able to log in, log out, just get that all bootstrapped in the project, and then when we want to do more advanced things, we can still do that.
Yeah, and a
And
lot of
yeah,
this can be done, like I said with Next.js, like that you could have done this with the use user in the front
yeah,
end in some cases where you don't even have to write an API. You've got that use user hook, and you just do
yeah.
user.update and then insert whatever you want, first name, last name, some metadata, things like that, which makes it really nice for somebody who may not feel that comfortable writing APIs and feel
Okay, yeah.
comfortable doing that. They can do a lot of this in the front end with hooks and components because we believe that for the front end, or at least this like serverless, very small front end development is the future. And it makes that a bit more simplified to get started, and you may not need an expert to do all those kinds of things.
Okay, no, this is pretty cool. So, and yeah, and I like how just wrapping it's kind of like higher order component
Right.
kind of pattern. I mean, you're just popping in the handler in there, but yeah, I like how that just all of a sudden just allows you to say like that requires you to be authorized to be
And
able to
if you were to
access this.
log, yeah, and if you were to log out of the Next.js app and try and hit it now, there would be nothing.
Yeah, let's try that. So I'm
Mhm.
gonna sign out here. Okay, so we're here. So obviously we need to log in, but let's just go back to the API/hello. Yeah,
And there you go.
unauthenticated.
So that route
Nice.
becomes protected, and you can do this numerous ways, right? So even with Next.js, because Next.js offers SSR as an option, you could,
Yep.
instead of having that where we built the components in the beginning, right, where we got clerk provider, signed in, signed out, and then like those options, to protect yourself in SSR, you can check to see if they have a session. And if they don't have a
Yeah.
session in SSR, you can just push them right back to your sign in page immediately. And the user doesn't
Okay.
know that this is happening, but you won't get some weird error messages or the client flashing or anything like that. It just automatically happens.
No,
And one
that's
big
really
feature
cool.
that we probably won't get to today because we're kind of getting close to time, but Clerk offers essentially JWT integrations, which allows you to do things like if you like Hazura, that's your backend, right? Or Superbase or
Yeah.
Fauna, one of those backends that you want to use. We give you the option to essentially be able to sort of tap in to that
Okay.
integration through our own JWTs with minimal setup. So I can quickly show
Okay.
you like the non the easy part or the other side of this. So if you go to the Clerk dashboard again, I can quickly show
Okay.
this off. We won't do any actual coding, but if you go to the dashboard, I can show you that we've kind of simplified the way that this kind of
Yeah.
works. So you don't have to be so diligent. So if you go to the dashboard there and click your application, and on the left hand side, there's JWT templates. Click that one.
Okay.
Click new template. And then we give you the
Okay.
option of any of these integrations out of the box. So let's
Okay.
select Hazura, for example. That's one of my
Yeah.
favorites. And if you scroll down, essentially all we're giving you here is everything that you need to identify the user on the Hazura's end. And once you click apply changes, you can actually get this JWT token in your application at any point.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
so that you can update or grab data from the client side or from the server side. We have this get token as part of the user that allows you to get that token, and so that you can pass it along to Hazura and be like, hey, Nick has logged in and I need his subscription identifiers or whatever it might be, without having
Okay.
to write a bunch of custom JWTs or some way to link them all together. We do all that
Okay.
for you, and all you have to do is click that button, that part's set up, do change your JWK URL in Hazura, and then that's it. You're away and you can start using your
Okay.
databases.
No, that's cool. And I could see a use case where like maybe there's some data in Hasura that doesn't change too often and you could
Mm-hmm.
sync it to maybe public metadata or some kind of
Right.
metadata, so that's pretty interesting. That's
Yeah.
super cool.
One of our favorite
Yeah.
things is we wrote a open source package called use Stripe subscriptions,
Okay.
which is a component based we basically componentized the API for Stripe, which
Okay.
allows you essentially to use components instead of having to write webhooks and backend APIs and all that kind of stuff. So we kind of like built this open source package that allows you to use Stripe. And
Okay.
in our demo app, that's exactly what we do, which is the Stripe customer ID becomes part of the public metadata because that never
Okay.
changes. Once you've bought one thing for a subscription, your ID never changes. And yeah, it's super cool to see these kinds of things start to happen where no one wants to write webhooks and APIs and backends when you can just use a component that you can, products component, and it gives you all of the products from their API without you
Yeah.
doing any work.
Yeah. Is
Yeah,
this the right page I'm on? Is this it?
that's the right page, but the GitHub URL I can pass to you too if you'd like. It'll probably be
Yeah.
easier.
I'll
It's
just
Clerk
I'll drop it in the chat.
use Stripe subscription. I'll drop it to you and send. There you go.
Cool. I'll just load that up here.
Yeah, and it's just
Cool.
super like like a lightweight version. Allows you to interact with their APIs without having to worry about webhooks and all that kind of stuff. It's just in time APIs, which is basically what we're about at Clerk.
Yeah. No, this is super cool. Yeah, no, I definitely like the power of hooks, like there's so many hooks out there now. It's a great way to just promote reusability. And obviously this is one of your company's ones, so it's obviously like I would assume a pretty rigorously solid for Stripe. So that's really
Yeah.
cool. That's super awesome. Yeah, like you said, we're almost at time here. I've got a hard stop in 10 minutes, but I guess it's probably a good place to wrap up. I mean, so like there's a couple other people that just joined, but yeah, just to kind of wrap up. So we started off with create next app. From there, we added the clerk provider. I'll just go back to the code here. And my prettier again is not working, but that's all good. So we got the clerk provider. You wrap that in your whole app, and all of a sudden you have access to basically everything clerk wise. And then we were able to put in, a user button. So like if you're signed in, so you could see like we were showing like I could manage my account and stuff. That was at the top left there. And it was very quick to get set up. We got set up with 2 keys there, which they're hidden at the moment, but yeah. So we have like the Next public clerk front end API keys. Any front end keys you want to expose from the environment in Next, you prefix them with Next underscore. So that was the public clerk key, and I really like this approach because right away I could copy it and I was like up and running really quickly. And then we added the clerk API key after to have some fun with the API, which I kind of derailed without JSON stringifying the body. But I just like that you have kind of like the best of both worlds. You can get up and running. People can be super productive right away. And then if you want to dig into more advanced stuff, you have all the hooks there to do it. So this is really cool. And yeah, I'm honestly impressed how quick I was. Like you said, it's a production ready app. I mean, obviously the next app is that we have isn't really doing anything at the moment, but
Right.
it's already guarded by authentication, and so that's pretty cool. I was wondering if you had anything else to say before we kind of wrap things up here. I'm gonna drop some more links for James. James, aside from working at Clerk, is a content creator too, so definitely give him a follow on Twitter, on Twitch if you aren't already. I gave you a follow the other day. I saw you gave me a follow, so thank you.
I did indeed. Thank you.
And yeah, check him out on YouTube too. He's always popping up content there, so definitely check all that out. Anything else you wanted to mention before we wrap things up here?
That's basically it. And go and check out Clerk. Go and have some fun. Go build something. I'll give you a sneaky peek that we may be doing a cool competition in a week
Okay.
or so. I'm not going to give any details, but we are going to be doing a competition for a month with cash prizes and some cool stuff. So if you're thinking about checking out Clerk, now's the time because there will be some incentive in the future to play around with it. So
Cool. All right. Well, awesome. Well, thanks again, James, for being so accommodating with the reschedule with my Twitch login kerfuffle the other day. And yeah, it was super cool hanging out. And yeah, I'd love to catch another stream some other time with you. And yeah, that's it, folks. We got all kinds of fun stuff coming up in October and end of September. James Quick's going to be on. He's got his Felt course coming out. We're going to be talking about that and all things Felty. Roselle Scarlett from GitHub's going to be popping by. Josh Goldberg, who just released a TypeScript book recently. We're going to be talking about all things TypeScript. So lots of good stuff. So encourage you to check out the stream when you can. And we'll see you all hopefully next week. Later, friends.
See ya.